The data I was able to find about private equity ownership in Colorado is that 19% of apartment units are owned by private equity firms there. That's from the Private Equity Stakeholder Project. And then there's another report about investors owning single family homes. That's estimated to be about a quarter. Now, investor might be someone who has one rental unit. It doesn't necessarily, it's investor is a much broader term than private equity firms. But if we focus in on the 19% of apartments owned by private equity firms. Do you think Coloradans are well served by almost 1 out of 5 apartments being owned by private equity?
So, by the way, one of the things we do is apartments for rent and in Colorado, condos for purchase were out of whack because of some elaborate construction liability laws that we had. We fixed those. So we're hoping that more people build condos here. That's for ownership, great starter home, 300,000. There's also, of course, a role for rentals for apartments. And David, there's good and bad landlords of all types, right? I know people who have horror stories from their landlords that were not private equity. I know people who are tenants of a one that's owned by a larger equity firm that are happy, not happy. I mean, there's good and bad landlords of all kinds. So I don't think you can really just connect the dots and say that they're all good or all bad of a certain type.
Well, I mean, I think that that's true, but I do feel the need to push back a little bit because when you look at the resource, when you have a bad individual landlord, the resources and the pockets, the depth of the pockets of the individual landlord who has a couple of apartments is going to be very different than what a private equity firm and its pockets can sort of bear or tolerate in terms of litigation or disproportionate power. So I don't know that it's necessarily the same. I mean, I think it's true that there are good and bad landlords, but there's really good scholarship about the state of apartments owned by private equity on average is objectively worse. The responsiveness and the debt collection tactics are extraordinarily more aggressive. You don't draw any distinction between just an
Well,
individual
I think
landlord and a
you're
private equity.
asking the right question. So you ask the tenant, these are good questions. You say, look, when you have a problem, your water doesn't work or there's mold on your wall, is the response fast, right? That's what you need to ask. Of course, debt collection is another category. So, again, we should have more information about people kind of rating their landlords, but there are derelict landlords of all types and there's great landlords of all types. So I'd certainly be concerned if there was a concentration of ownership. For instance, if it was one private equity firm that owned 19%. I don't think that's the case. It's many, but there's
A
obviously
few, yeah.
competition among landlords, and some of them have a bad reputation, and tenants are less likely to sign up for those.